Welcome back to comfy sleeping. Get comfortable now. Let your body sink into the bed. Let your eyes close, even if you keep listening for a while yet. Tonight we're going to drift together through some of the oldest stories ever told. The myths of ancient Greece. Stories of gods and titans, of quiet gardens and starlit seas, of heroes who traveled long roads home. We'll move through them slowly, one after another, the way an old storyteller might, seated by a fire, in no hurry to reach the end. There's no need to remember any of it. Just let the stories drift past you, soft and unhurried, like clouds crossing a night sky. Chapter 1: Before the Gods. Long before there were gods with names, the old stories say there was only chaos. A vast, quiet emptiness without shape, without light, without direction. Not frightening exactly. Simply still, the way a held breath is still. And out of that stillness, slowly, the first things came. Gaia, the wide earth, settling gently into being like a great, patient body at rest. And high above her, Uranus, the sky arching over everything, calm and endless. Gaia and Uranus, the old poets tell us, had children together. Enormous, powerful beings called Titans. And among them, one quiet, watchful son named Kronos. Picture it now, if it helps you rest. A young world, barely formed. Wide gray seas, without a single ship upon them. Mountains standing silent, with no one yet to climb them. A sky utterly full of stars, and beneath it, only a handful of vast, ancient beings, slowly learning what it meant to exist at all. There is something very peaceful in that image. A world with nowhere to be yet. No roads, no cities, no hurry. Only the earth and sky, resting quietly together, the way you might rest now, with nowhere else you need to be either. Chapter 2: The Titans and the Birth of Zeus. In time, Kronos came to rule over that first world. And he ruled for a very long age, the stories say. An age so long it later came to be remembered as a golden one. Fields that gave fruit without much tending. Rivers that ran clear. A slow, easy peace over everything. Kronos had children of his own, with a titan named Rhea. But an old prophecy troubled him, a quiet fear that one of his children would one day become greater than he was. And so, the myth tells us, gently but sadly, he kept them very close indeed, swallowing each newborn child so that none could grow to challenge him. Rhea, when her youngest was born, could not bear to lose this child too. So she wrapped a smooth stone in soft cloth instead, and Kronos, only half paying attention, accepted it without noticing the difference. And the true child, a boy named Zeus, was carried away quietly to a hidden mountain cave on the island of Crete to grow up safely, far from his father's notice. Picture that cave now, if it helps you settle. Cool stone walls, the soft sound of goats somewhere nearby, one of whom, Amalthea, is said to have raised the child gently as her own. Sunlight falling in narrow beams through cracks in the rock above. A quiet, hidden childhood, unhurried, waiting patiently for the boy to grow. And grow he did. Until, years later, Zeus returned to challenge his father and freed his brothers and sisters from where they had been kept all that time. Hestia, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, one by one, released gently into the wider world at last. Let your own thoughts rest here a while. A hidden cave, a patient childhood, a long wait finally coming to its quiet end. Nothing about this story needs to be resolved quickly tonight. Just let it settle, slow and unhurried, the way the young Zeus once settled into that mountain cave, safe and unbothered by the wider world. Chapter 3: The New Order of Olympus. After that long, old struggle between the young gods and the elder titans, a new order settled gently over the world. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, the three brothers, divided the realms between them, the way brothers might divide an inheritance. Zeus took the wide sky as his home, Poseidon the deep and endless sea, and Hades the quiet, shadowed underworld where the spirits of the dead came to rest at last. The other gods gathered on Mount Olympus, a high mountain whose peak, the old poets say, was always wrapped in cloud, its summit never troubled by rain or wind or storm. A calm, untouchable place, high above the ordinary world. Picture that mountain now, if it helps you rest. White cloud resting gently over its peak, undisturbed, day after day. Marble halls somewhere within that soft cloud, said to shine faintly even in the dimmest light. A stillness up there that the noise of the world below never quite reached. The gods who lived there each held their own quiet domain. Hera, goddess of marriage and home. Athena, goddess of wisdom. Apollo, of the sun and music. Artemis, of the moon and the hunt. Aphrodite, of love. Ares, of war. Hermes, the swift messenger. Hephaestus, the quiet craftsman at his forge. Demeter, of the harvest. Dionysus, of wine and festivity. Let your thoughts rest on that high, cloud-wrapped mountain now. A place above the noise of the world, calm and unreachable. You might imagine your own rest, tonight like that same quiet peak. Untouched by anything urgent, wrapped gently in its own soft, undisturbed cloud. Chapter 4: Prometheus and the Gift of Fire. Among the Titans who did not fight against the new gods was one named Prometheus, whose name meant, roughly, foresight. A quiet, thoughtful being who had grown fond of the young human race, still new to the world, still cold, still without much comfort. Humans in those early days had no fire, the old stories tell us. No warmth against the night, no way to cook their food, no light once the sun went down. Only long, dark, difficult evenings. Prometheus, watching them shiver through those early nights, felt a quiet, patient sympathy. And so, the myth says, he climbed to Olympus and took a single ember of the gods' own fire, hidden carefully inside a hollow stalk of fennel, and carried it gently back down to the waiting world below. Picture that slow journey now, if it helps you settle. A long walk down from the high mountain, careful and unhurried. A small glowing coal cupped safe inside the plant stem, protected from the wind. And then, at last, arriving among the cold, waiting humans, and setting that first small flame gently down among them. However, the punishment that followed is remembered in the old, harder versions of this story. Tonight will rest instead on that quieter moment. The very first fire, flickering to life in human hands. Warmth finally against the dark. Light finally to see by. A gift carried slowly and carefully, so that no one after would ever have to sit cold in the dark again. Let that same warmth settle over you now. Imagine a small, steady flame, close and safe, its gentle heat easing you further into rest. Nothing sudden about it. Only a slow, patient warmth carried a long way, just so you could feel it now. Chapter 5. Demeter, Persephone, and the Turning Seasons. Demeter, goddess of the harvest, loved her daughter Persephone more than anything else in the wide world. And Persephone, the stories say, loved best of all to wander through open meadows, gathering flowers, unhurried with her friends. One quiet afternoon, while gathering blossoms in a wide field, Persephone was drawn by an especially beautiful flower. And as she reached for it, the ground itself opened gently beneath her, and Hades, lord of the quiet underworld, lonely in his shadowed halls, drew her down to become his queen. Demeter's grief, when she found her daughter gone, was enormous. She wandered the whole earth searching, the myth tells us, and as she grieved, the fields she was meant to tend grew cold and bare. Crops failed. The whole world, in sympathy with her sorrow, slowed and dimmed and grew quiet. Zeus, seeing the suffering below, arranged a compromise. Persephone would spend part of each year below with Hades, and part of each year above with her mother once more. And so, the old story explains, we have the seasons still today. Demeter's joy each time her daughter returns, bringing spring and summer, and her quiet grief each time Persephone descends again, bringing autumn's fading light and winter's long, slow rest. Picture it now, if it helps you settle. A mother and daughter, reunited each year, walking together again through fields slowly greening. And then, gently, a season of rest when the daughter goes below once more, and the whole world in sympathy grows quiet and still, the way you might grow quiet and still now, easing into your own long, restful season. There is something deeply calming in a story built around that same rhythm. Loss and then return. Rest and then renewal. Let your own breathing settle into that same old, patient pattern now. In and out. Waking and resting. Nothing about it hurried, nothing about it final. Only a long, gentle cycle, turning quietly on, the way it always has. Chapter 6, Orpheus and his Quiet Song. Orpheus, the old stories say, could play the lyre so beautifully that rivers paused their flowing to listen, and even the hardest stones softened, just slightly, at the sound of his music. When his beloved wife, Eurydice, died suddenly, Orpheus could not bear the silence that followed. And so, carrying only his lyre, he journeyed down into the underworld itself, past its dim gates, to plead for her return. Even Hades, lord of that quiet, shadowed realm, was moved by the song Orpheus played. A slow, aching melody, gentle and unhurried, carrying all his sorrow inside it. And so Hades agreed, on one condition. Orpheus could lead Eurydice back to the world above, but he must not look behind him until they both had reached the light. Picture that long, silent walk now, if it helps you rest. Orpheus walking slowly upward, through dim, quiet passages, his wife's footsteps. He hoped, following softly somewhere behind him. Doubt creeping in, slow and heavy, the longer the silence stretched on. Tonight, we'll let the story rest gently, unresolved, the way old stories sometimes do. Not every tale needs a firm ending to be worth carrying with you. Sometimes it's enough to simply picture that long, patient walk upward, one slow step at a time, moving steadily toward the light. Let your own thoughts move that same way now. Slow, steady steps, one after another, unhurried, moving gently toward your own quiet rest. Nothing behind you worth turning back for tonight. Only forward softly toward sleep. Chapter 7, Psyche's long, patient search. Psyche was, by every account, remarkably beautiful, so much so that people began to admire her even more than Aphrodite herself, which the goddess of love did not take kindly to at all. And so she sent her son, Eros, to deal with the matter. But Eros, seeing Psyche for himself, fell quietly in love instead, and arranged, with some effort, to make her his wife, on one gentle condition. she must never look upon his face, and could only be with him after dark. Psyche, curious as people often are, eventually lit a small lamp one night to see her husband's face while he slept. And startled by what she found, a single drop of hot oil fell from her lamp and woke him, and he fled, hurt by her broken trust. What followed was a long, patient search. Psyche wandering from place to place, completing one difficult task after another, set for her by Aphrodite, each one slower and harder than the last. Sorting vast piles of mixed grain, seed by seed, gathering golden wool from dangerous sheep, traveling even to the underworld itself and back again. Picture her now, if it helps you settle. Patient, unhurried, working her way steadily through each long task, never rushing, never giving up, trusting that the slow work would, eventually, lead her home again. And it did in the end. Eros returned to her, the story tells us, and their long separation finally, gently, came to its close. Let your own thoughts rest on that patient persistence now. Slow, steady effort, trusting quietly that rest, too, will come in its own good time, exactly as it should. Chapter 8, Perseus and the Quiet After. Perseus is remembered mostly for one difficult task: facing Medusa, whose gaze could turn any who met it to stone. But tonight, let's rest instead on the quieter parts of his story, the ones that come after. With Athena's calm guidance and Hermes' swift help, Perseus completed his task carefully, using a polished shield to avoid Medusa's gaze directly, watching only her reflection. And once it was done, he did not linger there. He traveled onward, unhurried, carrying his purpose quietly with him. On his way home, the story tells us, he passed a rocky coastline where a princess named Andromeda had been left, chained to a cliff as an offering to a sea monster. And Perseus, without much fuss, simply resolved the matter and freed her, and the two of them continued on together. Picture that quiet coastline now, if it helps you rest. Waves moving slowly against pale rock. A chain finally unfastened. Two travelers, unhurried, setting off together down a long coastal road, in no particular rush to reach anywhere at all. Eventually, Perseus returned home and lived, the old stories say, a long and peaceful life. Let that same peaceful ending settle over you now. A difficult task, completed carefully. A long journey, unhurried. And finally, a quiet homecoming, exactly like the one waiting for you tonight, in your own bed, in your own rest. Chapter 9, The 12 Labors Told Slowly. Heracles, strongest of all the heroes, was given 12 difficult tasks to complete, as penance for a terrible misfortune, brought on by the goddess Hera's old grudge against him. Tonight, we won't rush through all 12. Just a few, told slowly, the way a tired traveler might recall an old journey. The first task sent him after the Nemean lion, whose hide no weapon could pierce. Heracles, patient and resourceful, eventually wrestled the creature with his bare hands alone, and afterward wore its hide as his own cloak, since nothing could cut through it either. Later, he was sent to clean the vast stables of King Augeas, filled with years of uncleared waste. Rather than working alone with a shovel for a lifetime, Heracles patiently diverted 2 entire rivers to run directly through the stables, letting the water do the long, slow work for him. Picture that now, if it helps you settle. 2 great rivers, redirected gently from their old paths, flowing calmly through the stables, carrying everything away without any struggle at all. Sometimes, the old story quietly suggests patience and clever thinking accomplish more than raw effort ever could. Task by task, across many long years, Heracles worked his way through each trial, capturing a golden-horned deer without harming it, only patiently outlasting its endurance, retrieving golden apples from a garden at the edge of the world, guarded by a 100-headed dragon. Let your own thoughts rest on that same slow, patient persistence now. One long task at a time, unhurried, each one completed fully before moving to the next. Nothing about your own rest tonight needs solving all at once either. Just one slow, easy breath at a time. Chapter 10. Icarus and the Long Fall Remembered Gently. Daedalus, a skilled craftsman, was kept for a time on the island of Crete, along with his young son, Icarus. And wanting badly to return home, Daedalus fashioned 2 pairs of wings from feathers and wax, one for himself and one for his son. Before they set off across the sea, Daedalus gave his son one careful, gentle warning. Don't fly too low, or the sea's dampness will weigh down your wings. And don't fly too high, or the sun's heat will melt the wax that holds them together. Only the steady middle path, he said, would carry you safely home. Icarus, caught up in the joy of flight, the old story tells us, drifted upward, higher and higher, delighted by the height and the view, until the sun's warmth softened the wax, and he fell gently down into the sea below. Tonight, let's rest on the wide, calm sky itself, rather than the fall. Picture 2 small figures, wings outstretched, gliding slowly over a bright blue sea, sunlight catching gently on feathers, the whole wide world spread calm and quiet beneath them. There's a gentle lesson in the old tale about steady middle paths, about neither rushing too high nor sinking too low. But tonight, simply let yourself drift along that same steady middle course, not reaching too far for anything, only gliding calm and unhurried, toward your own soft landing in sleep. Chapter 11: Odysseus and the Long Way Home. After many long years away, fighting in a distant war, Odysseus, king of a small island called Ithaca, simply wanted to go home. But his journey home, the old poet Homer tells us, took nearly as long as the war itself. Along the way, his ship passed the island of the Lotus Eaters, where the fruit was so sweet and calming that anyone who tasted it forgot entirely about going home, content simply to rest there forever. Odysseus wisely kept his crew moving onward, though the temptation, the story admits, was real. Later, sailing past a certain rocky coast, he had to pass the sirens, whose songs were so beautiful that sailors were drawn helplessly toward the rocks to hear them more closely. Odysseus, curious but careful, had his crew bind him to the ship's mast and fill their own ears with wax, so he alone could hear that beautiful, dangerous song, safely unable to act on it. Picture that moment now, if it helps you settle. A ship gliding steadily past a quiet, rocky shore. A distant, beautiful melody drifting across the water, heard but not followed. The ship continuing calmly, onward regardless, toward home, unhurried by any temptation to stop. After many more long years, storms, and detours, Odysseus finally returned to Ithaca, older, more patient, and gladder than ever simply to rest in his own home again. Let that same relief settle over you now. A long journey, finally, gently complete. Nothing left to sail toward tonight, except your own quiet harbor, waiting patiently for you to arrive. Chapter 12: The Stars That Remember Them. The old Greeks believed that some of these very stories were eventually carried up into the night sky itself, placed there gently among the stars, so they might be remembered for as long as anyone still looked upward after dark. Orion, the great hunter, still strides slowly across the winter sky, his belt of 3 bright stars visible on any clear, dark night. Cassiopeia, a queen from an old story, still sits in her starry chair, tracing her same slow circle around the pole, night after night, for as long as anyone has kept watch. The Pleiades, 7 sisters from another old tale, still cluster closely together in the night sky. A small, soft huddle of light, easy to miss if you're not looking closely, easy to love once you've found them. Picture the whole night sky now, if it helps you rest. Every old story, quietly folded into a pattern of stars overhead. Heroes and sisters and hunters and queens all resting together up there, patient and unhurried, retracing the very same slow paths they've followed for thousands of years. There is something very peaceful in that thought, that these old stories never really ended at all. They simply moved upward, gently into the sky, where they still turn slowly overhead every single night, whether or not anyone remembers to look up and find them. Chapter 13: Pandora and the Jar of Trials. Zeus, the old stories say, wanted to send a gift down to humankind. Though gift is perhaps too simple a word for what it truly was. He had the gods fashion a woman named Pandora, each one giving her some quality of their own. Beauty from Aphrodite, cleverness from Hermes, skill from Athena. Pandora was given, along with all these gifts, a single sealed jar and a gentle but firm instruction never to open it. Curiosity, though, is an old and patient companion of humankind, and eventually, the story tells us, she lifted the lid, only a little, only for a moment. Out from that jar drifted all the difficult things the world had not yet known. Weariness, sickness, quiet sorrow. But at the very bottom, after everything else had gone, one more thing remained and stayed. Hope, quiet and patient, settling gently at the bottom of the jar, and staying there ever since. Picture that jar now, if it helps you rest. Its lid closed once more, one small, steady presence still resting quietly inside. Whatever else the day has carried, hope stays close, patient, and unhurried, waiting quietly for you. The way it has waited in that old jar for longer than anyone can count. Let your own thoughts settle on that same quiet presence now. Nothing sudden, nothing demanding. Only a steady, patient hope, resting gently at the bottom of everything, right where it's always been. Chapter 14: Theseus and the Long Way Through the Labyrinth. On the island of Crete, King Minos kept a vast, winding labyrinth beneath his palace, built by the same clever craftsman Daedalus we heard of earlier tonight. And within its many turning corridors lived the Minotaur, a creature half man and half bull. Each year, the story tells us, young men and women were sent into that labyrinth as tribute, never to find their way out again. Until Theseus, a prince from Athens, volunteered to go himself, determined to end the tribute for good. Ariadne, the king's daughter, seeing him and feeling for his cause, gave him a simple gift before he entered. A spool of thread, its end tied at the entrance, so that no matter how far he wandered or how many turns he took, he could always, slowly, patiently, find his way back out again. Picture that thread now, if it helps you settle. Unwinding slowly behind him with every step, a thin, steady line through the dark, turning corridors. Nothing hurried in his pace, only careful, patient progress deeper in. And then, eventually, just as patiently, back out again. Theseus found the Minotaur at the center, the old story says, and the labyrinth's long challenge came finally to its quiet end. But it's that thread, unwinding steadily behind him, that's worth resting on tonight. A slow, careful line leading gently back toward safety. The way your own breath might lead you now, slowly, steadily, back toward rest. Chapter 15. Jason and the Golden Fleece. Jason was owed a kingdom, the old stories tell us. But to claim it, he was sent on an impossible errand. To sail to a distant land and bring back the Golden Fleece, a ram's hide of pure gold, guarded closely by a watchful dragon that never slept. He gathered a crew of the finest heroes in all of Greece, and their ship, the Argo, set out across a long, unfamiliar sea, stopping at many quiet islands along the way, each with its own small adventure, its own night spent resting on some unfamiliar shore. When at last they reached the distant kingdom, it was Medea, a princess skilled in old and careful arts, who helped Jason past the dragon, using a slow, calming charm to ease the great creature into sleep, rather than facing it in any struggle at all. Picture that moment now, if it helps you rest. An enormous, coiled guardian slowly, gently, easing into stillness, its ancient watchfulness finally, quietly, giving way to rest. Exactly the way your own watchfulness can ease now, slowly releasing, one slow coil at a time. With the fleece finally in hand, the Argo turned homeward, the long voyage retracing itself slowly across the same wide, patient sea. Let your own thoughts drift on that same voyage now. A long journey, slowly nearing its end, a golden prize resting safe at last, and nothing left now but the calm, steady sail home. Chapter 16. Echo and Narcissus. Echo was once a nymph who loved to talk, so much so that she was cursed, the old story says, to only ever repeat the last words spoken to her, never able to begin a conversation of her own again. She fell deeply in love with a beautiful young man named Narcissus, but could only echo his own words back to him, never able to voice her feelings directly. And Narcissus, the story tells us, was somewhat taken with himself already, and did not return her quiet affection. One day, resting beside a still, clear pool of water, Narcissus caught sight of his own reflection, and became so entranced by it that he could not look away. He stayed there, the old myth says, gazing quietly at the water's calm surface, until he simply faded, gently, into a flower that still bears his name. Picture that quiet pool now, if it helps you settle. Water so still, it holds a perfect, unmoving reflection. No ripple, no disturbance, only calm, patient stillness, mirrored back exactly as it is. And somewhere nearby, perhaps, a faint echo still lingers among the rocks, repeating softly whatever soft words drift its way. Let your own thoughts settle into that same still water now. Calm, reflective, undisturbed, and let any lingering thoughts simply echo once, softly, and then fade quietly into silence. Chapter 17. Arachne's Careful Weaving. Arachne was, by all accounts, an extraordinarily skilled weaver, so skilled that she claimed, perhaps too boldly, that her work matched even that of Athena, goddess of wisdom and craft herself. Athena, hearing this, came down to see for herself, and the two wove side by side, each cloth more intricate than the last. Arachne's work, the old story admits honestly, was flawless, thread after thread placed with perfect, patient precision. What became of Arachne afterward is told differently in different old versions, some gentler than others. But tonight, let's simply rest on the weaving itself. Two great weavers, working quietly side by side, each thread chosen carefully, each pattern built slowly, one careful pass at a time. Picture that loom now, if it helps you settle. Threads crossing over and under, slowly, patiently. An image emerging gradually from what began as only scattered strands. Nothing rushed about it, only steady, careful repetition, one pass, and then another, and then another. Let your own thoughts weave that same slow pattern now. One calm thought crossing gently over the last, a pattern of rest slowly forming, thread by careful thread, until the whole soft cloth of sleep is finally, gently, complete. Chapter 18. Midas and the Golden Touch. King Midas, the old stories say, was granted a wish by the god Dionysus, in gratitude for a small kindness Midas had shown him. And Midas, without thinking it through fully, wished that everything he touched might turn to gold. At first, the gift delighted him. Stone turned to gold beneath his fingers. Ordinary twigs became gleaming golden branches. But soon enough, his food turned to hard, cold metal the moment it touched his lips, and he understood, slowly, and with some regret, what he had truly asked for. Dionysus, seeing his trouble, showed him a gentle way to undo the wish. To bathe in the waters of a certain river, and let the golden touch wash quietly away, back into the water itself, where traces of gold are said to linger in that riverbed, even now. Picture that river now, if it helps you rest. Cool water flowing steadily over pale golden sand, carrying away whatever heavy, glittering weight had settled onto him. Unhurried, patient, exactly as much as needed and no more. Let that same water wash gently over your own thoughts now, carrying away anything heavy or overly bright, anything that glitters too sharply to rest beside. Only cool, steady water remaining, calm and clear, exactly enough to settle you toward sleep. Chapter 19. Sisyphus and his patient stone. Sisyphus was clever, perhaps too clever, and for reasons the old stories explain in various ways, he was given a particular task in the underworld: to push a great stone up a long hill, only to watch it roll back down again each time, just before it reached the top. It's often told as a punishment, endless and without hope. But tonight, let's rest on it a little differently. Picture the stone, heavy and rounded, its surface worn smooth by countless slow, pushes up the same familiar slope. There's a certain steady rhythm in it, if you let yourself notice. The climb, slow and effortful. The small pause at the top, just before the fall. And then the quiet walk back down, unhurried to begin again, patient and unbothered by how many times it's happened before. Picture Sisyphus now, resting for just a moment at the base of that hill, catching his breath, in no rush to begin the climb again, just yet. There is a kind of peace, even here, in a task repeated without urgency, without any need to finish it tonight at all. Let your own thoughts rest at the base of that same hill now. No stone to push tonight. Only a quiet pause, unhurried, at the bottom of a long, familiar slope, resting exactly as long as you need to before anything else is asked of you. Chapter 20, Atlas and the Weight of the Sky. Atlas, one of the old Titans, was given an unusual task after the long struggle between gods and Titans had ended: to hold up the sky itself, bearing its whole vast weight upon his shoulders, so that it would not fall and mix with the earth below. Picture him now, if it helps you rest, standing steady and unmoving, the wide dome of the sky resting quietly across his broad shoulders, stars turning slowly overhead, night after night, while he simply stands, patient, unhurried, bearing it all without complaint. There's an old story of Heracles, during one of his own labors, offering to hold the sky for a short while, so that Atlas might rest his shoulders, just briefly, after so very long. And Atlas, the myth says, was deeply grateful for even that small, temporary relief. Perhaps tonight is your own small moment of that same relief. Imagine, just for now, that whatever weight you've been carrying can rest on someone else's steady shoulders for a while, the way Atlas once let his rest, just briefly, against another's willing strength. Let your own shoulders settle now, the weight easing gently off them. Nothing left to hold up tonight. Only rest, patient and unburdened, the wide sky turning quietly overhead without needing anything at all from you. Chapter 21, Pygmalion's Patient Devotion. Pygmalion was a sculptor, skilled and exacting, who grew quietly disappointed with the people around him, and poured his effort instead into a single, perfect statue, carved carefully from cool white stone. He worked on her for a very long time, the old story tells us, shaping every soft curve and careful detail with endless, patient attention, until she seemed almost ready to breathe, almost ready to step down from her pedestal and walk. Aphrodite, moved by the quiet devotion in his work, granted the statue life. Gently, the story says, warming the cool stone slowly into soft, living skin, until Pygmalion's careful patience was answered at last. Picture that slow transformation now, if it helps you settle. Cool stone, warming by careful degrees. Stillness, slowly giving way to soft, gentle breath. Nothing sudden about it, only patient warmth, spreading gradually, the way warmth might spread through your own body now, easing you gently toward rest. Let your own thoughts soften that same way now. Whatever feels stone still or effortful tonight, let it warm slowly, gently, at its own unhurried pace. Patience, in the end, is its own quiet reward. Chapter 22. Phaethon and the Sun's Long Path. Helios drove the sun itself across the sky each day, the old stories tell us, guiding a great golden chariot along the same careful path, high enough to warm the earth, but never so high or low as to scorch it. His son Phaethon begged once to drive the chariot himself, just for a single day, and Helios, reluctant but unable to refuse, agreed. But the horses, sensing an unfamiliar and less steady hand upon the reins, strayed wildly from their usual careful course. Tonight, rather than dwell on what followed, let's simply picture the sun's true, steady, familiar path instead. The one Helios has driven every day for as long as anyone can remember. Rising gently each morning, arcing patiently overhead, and settling calmly down again each evening, exactly the same, unhurried and dependable. Picture that steady arc now, if it helps you rest. A golden light, rising and falling in the same familiar rhythm it always has, needing no correction, no adjustment, only its same old, patient, well-worn path across the sky. Let your own thoughts settle into that same dependable rhythm now, rising and resting, waking and sleeping. The same old, familiar path, steady and unhurried, carrying you gently toward your own quiet evening. Chapter 23. Pan and the Reeds by the River. Pan, god of wild places and quiet forests, was known for his love of music, and for a set of pipes he carried everywhere, made from hollow reeds bound carefully together. The old story tells of a nymph named Syrinx, who, fleeing from Pan through a riverside marsh, was gently transformed into a stand of reeds just as he reached her. And Pan, hearing the wind move softly through those same reeds, was struck by the quiet, breathy sound it made. He cut several reeds of differing lengths, the myth says, and bound them together. And from then on carried that same soft, airy music with him wherever he wandered through forest and field. Picture that sound now, if it helps you rest. A low, breathy note, drifting gently across a quiet meadow at dusk. Simple, unhurried, the wind itself given a soft and steady voice. Let that same breathy, gentle sound settle over you now. Slow, airy notes, drifting without hurry. The way wind moves through reeds along a quiet riverbank, asking nothing of you except to listen softly until sleep arrives on its own. Chapter 24. The Judgment on the Mountain. At a wedding among the gods, an old story tells us, a single golden apple was tossed among the guests, marked simply for the fairest. And 3 goddesses, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, each quietly believed it was meant for her. A young shepherd prince named Paris was asked to settle the matter. There, on a quiet mountainside, away from the noise of the gathered gods. Each goddess offered him something different, power, wisdom, or love, in exchange for his choice. Paris chose Aphrodite, the story says, and with her gift came Helen, said to be the most beautiful woman in the world. And from that quiet choice on a mountainside, much larger events would eventually follow. Picture that mountainside now, if it helps you rest. A young shepherd, alone with his flock, suddenly faced with 3 visitors more than mortal. The quiet, unhurried wait of an ordinary evening, briefly touched by something far larger than itself. Let your own evening feel that same quiet wait now. Nothing you need to decide tonight, no judgment required of you. Only rest, settling gently over an ordinary evening, exactly like any other, and yet entirely its own. Chapter 25. The Long Siege and the Wooden Horse. What followed Paris's choice was a long war, fought before the walls of Troy, stretching on, the old poets tell us, for 10 long years. Too long a story to tell in full tonight, so let's rest instead on its quiet, clever ending. After a decade of struggle, the Greeks devised a plan. A great wooden horse, hollow inside, built to look like a farewell gift left behind as their ships appeared to sail away. Hidden within its frame, a small group of soldiers waited, patient and silent, for nightfall. The people of Troy, believing the war finally over, brought the horse inside their walls themselves and celebrated long into the night. And only once the whole city had settled into a deep, unguarded sleep did the hidden soldiers quietly emerge. Picture that quiet, sleeping city now, if it helps you rest. Lanterns burning low, celebration fading into stillness, an entire city settling gently into rest after 10 long years of waiting. Tonight, let's simply rest there too, in that same deep, settled quiet, before anything more needs to happen at all. Let your own thoughts settle the same way now, unhurried, the way that whole tired city finally settled. A long stretch of waiting, finally easing into deep, well-earned rest. Chapter 26, Aeneas and the Long Sail West. Among the few who escaped that fallen city was a Trojan prince named Aeneas, carrying his elderly father on his own shoulders and leading his young son by the hand out through the burning streets and down toward the waiting sea. What followed, the old poets tell us, was a long voyage across much of the known world, searching for a new home. Storms and strange islands, and long stretches of open, patient water. One slow day of sailing after another. Picture his ship now, if it helps you rest. Sails catching a steady, unhurried wind, the wide sea stretching calm and endless in every direction. A small crew of survivors, patient and resolute, trusting that a new shore waited for them somewhere ahead. Eventually, the story tells us, that long journey led him to the shores of Italy, where he would, in time, lay the quiet foundations of what later became Rome itself. A new beginning, found only after a very long, very patient voyage. Let your own thoughts sail that same calm, steady course now. Whatever has ended today, some new, quiet shore waits patiently ahead. Nothing to reach tonight except rest, arriving gently, the way Aeneas's ship at last arrived on its own new, quiet coast. Chapter 27, The Muses and the Old Songs. 9 sisters, the Muses, were said to inspire every kind of art among mortals. One for history, one for comedy, one for tragedy, one for dance, one for love poetry, and others still for music and astronomy, and the many kinds of songs sung long ago. Poets and singers, the old stories say, would call on them before beginning any tale, asking quietly for their gentle guidance, trusting that the words would come more easily with their calm assistance. Picture them now, if it helps you rest. 9 quiet figures, seated together on some high, unhurried hillside, each holding some small instrument or scroll, patient and watchful, ready to lend a gentle word to anyone who asked sincerely. Perhaps it was the Muses, in their own quiet way, who first gave voice to every story we've shared tonight. Perseus and Psyche and Orpheus with his lyre, and all the rest passed down patiently, one calm voice to the next, across more years than anyone could easily count. Let your own thoughts rest with them now, on that same quiet hillside, unhurried, patient, watching the evening settle slowly around you. Nothing left to compose tonight, no story left to finish. Only rest, offered as gently as any old, half-remembered song. Chapter 28. Nyx and the Birth of Night. Before almost anything else existed, the old stories say there was Nyx, the goddess of night herself, one of the very first beings to emerge from ancient chaos, older even than most of the titans who came after her. Nyx was so old and so quietly powerful that even Zeus, king of all the younger gods, was said to be cautious around her, careful never to trouble her rest without good reason. She lived, the poets tell us, in a deep, shadowed palace far to the west, where day and night traded places every evening, always calm, always unhurried. Each evening, Nyx would rise gently from that quiet palace, drawing her soft, star-scattered cloak slowly across the sky, covering the bright day little by little, until the whole world rested beneath her calm, dark canopy. Picture her now, if it helps you settle. A great, gentle figure, moving slowly across the heavens, her dark cloak trailing softly behind her, stars catching in its folds like scattered, quiet light. No hurry in her movements at all, only the same slow, patient covering she has drawn over the world every single evening since, before memory began. Let that same dark, soft cloak settle over you now. Heavy and gentle, star-scattered, unhurried. The whole bright day quietly folded away beneath it, the way it has been folded away every night for as long as night itself has existed. Chapter 29. Hypnos and the Cave of Sleep. Nyx had many children, the old stories tell us, and among the gentlest of them was Hypnos, god of sleep itself, who made his home in a deep, quiet cave where no rooster ever crowed, no dog ever barked, and no creaking door ever disturbed the stillness. Through that cave, the poets say, a slow, gentle stream trickled softly over smooth stones, its quiet murmur the only sound ever heard there, steady and unchanging, perfectly suited to easing anyone nearby toward rest. At the cave's center stood a wide, soft bed, draped in dark, heavy cloth, where Hypnos himself rested endlessly, his eyes half closed, poppies growing thick and quiet all around him, their scent said to draw even the most restless mind gently toward sleep. Picture that cave now, if it helps you settle. Cool stone walls, a slow stream murmuring steadily nearby, dark soft cloth, poppies nodding gently in some unfelt breeze. Utterly still, utterly unhurried, exactly the kind of place built for nothing else but rest. Let yourself rest in that same quiet cave now. The soft trickle of water nearby, the gentle scent of poppies drifting close, Hypnos himself resting peacefully at its center, exactly as he always has, patient and unbothered by the wider world beyond his quiet stone walls. Chapter 30. Morpheus and the Shaping of Dreams. Hypnos, the old stories say, had many sons, and the gentlest and most skilled among them was Morpheus, who could take on the shape and voice of any person, appearing softly in the dreams of sleepers to deliver whatever quiet message the gods intended. Morpheus moved without sound, the poets tell us, drifting silently through the dark on soft, wide wings, visiting one sleeping mind after another, careful never to wake anyone, only to gently shape the pictures that drifted through their rest. It's from his name, much later, that we get our own word morphine, and also our old expression for slipping quietly into the arms of Morpheus, meaning simply to drift, softly and completely, into deep and peaceful sleep. Picture him now, if it helps you rest. A quiet, winged figure, moving without sound through the dark, gently shaping soft images for anyone already resting. No urgency in his visits at all, only careful, patient attention to each sleeper's peaceful dreaming. Let Morpheus visit your own rest now, if you like. Softly, without sound, shaping whatever gentle pictures your own mind drifts toward. Nothing you need to hold onto, only soft, unhurried images, drifting past like clouds as you sink further toward sleep. Chapter 31. Selene and her sleeping shepherd. Selene, goddess of the moon, drove her own pale chariot across the night sky each evening, much as her brother Helios drove the sun by day, casting a soft, silver light gently over the sleeping world below. The old story tells of a young shepherd named Endymion, remarkably beautiful, whom Selene noticed one quiet evening resting in a cave upon a mountainside. So taken was she with his peaceful rest that she asked Zeus to grant him a single, gentle wish of his own choosing. Endymion, the myth says, chose to sleep forever, young and untroubled, undisturbed by age or hardship, resting eternally in that same quiet mountain cave. And Selene, it said, still visits him there every night, her pale light settling softly over his sleeping face. Picture that mountain cave now, if it helps you rest. Soft moonlight drifting gently through the opening, falling across a peaceful, untroubled sleeper, undisturbed for longer than anyone could count. Night after night, the same soft visit, the same gentle light, the same deep, untroubled rest. Let that same pale, gentle moonlight settle over you now. Soft and silver, drifting quietly across your own resting face. Nothing to trouble your sleep tonight, only Selene's calm, patient light, the way it has settled over Endymion's peaceful rest for longer than any story can quite measure. Chapter 32. The Fates and Their Patient Thread. 3 sisters, the Moirai, or Fates, were said to hold the thread of every mortal life. Clotho spun each thread gently into being. Lachesis measured its careful length, and Atropos, when the time came, cut it, unhurried and without cruelty, simply completing what had already been measured. The old poets described them working together quietly, endlessly, in some dim, unhurried corner of the world. 3 pairs of patient hands, spinning, measuring, and trimming, thread after thread, life after life, without ever needing to rush any part of the careful process. Picture them now, if it helps you rest. 3 quiet figures seated together, hands moving slowly and precisely, spindle turning steadily, threads gathering softly in a great, calm basket beside them. No urgency anywhere in their work, only patient, careful attention, one thread at a time. There's something calming, if you let it settle, in the thought of such quiet, unhurried patience behind even the largest things. Let your own thoughts rest in their care tonight. Nothing to measure, nothing to finish. Only soft, steady thread, spinning gently toward your own quiet rest. Chapter 33, Charon and the Quiet River. At the edge of the underworld, the old stories tell us, flows the river Styx, and along its dark, slow-moving water waits Charon, the ferryman, whose task is to carry the spirits of the dead gently across to the far shore. Charon's boat moves slowly, unhurried, across water so still it barely seems to move at all. He asks each traveler only for a small coin, the old custom says, carried for that very purpose, and in exchange, carries them without complaint toward whatever quiet rest waits beyond. Picture that river now, if it helps you settle. Dark, calm water, barely rippling beneath a small, steady boat. Mist drifting softly along its surface. No sound but the gentle dip of an oar, unhurried, patient, moving steadily toward a far, quiet shore. There is nothing frightening in this old, patient crossing, if you let yourself rest in it a while. Only a slow, calm passage from one quiet place to another, exactly as unhurried and certain as your own drift toward sleep tonight. Let yourself be carried gently now, the way that old, patient boat carries every traveler. Slow, steady, calm water all around you. Nothing to do but rest quietly until you reach your own soft, waiting shore. Chapter 34, Apollo, Daphne, and the Quiet Laurel. Apollo, god of sun and music, once pursued a nymph named Daphne through a quiet forest, though she wanted nothing to do with his attention, and ran from him instead, swift and afraid, deeper among the trees. As he finally drew near, Daphne called out to her father, a river god, to save her, and he answered gently by transforming her. There among the trees, into a laurel tree, her feet rooting slowly into the soft earth, her arms softening into leaf-covered branches. Apollo, the story says, grieved her loss, but honored her still, taking a laurel branch as his own sacred symbol from that day onward, wreaths of its leaves later crowning poets and victors, and anyone whose quiet, patient effort deserved gentle recognition. Picture that forest now, if it helps you rest. Tall, quiet laurel trees, leaves rustling softly overhead, roots settled deep and patient into the cool earth below. A stillness that was once movement, now resting, unhurried, exactly where it needed to be. Let your own thoughts settle into that same rooted stillness now. Whatever restlessness the day carried, let it soften now, gently, into calm, patient rest. The way Daphne's own hurried steps finally softened into the still, quiet strength of an old laurel tree. Chapter 35. Young Hermes and the Borrowed Cattle. Hermes, messenger of the gods, was famously clever even as a newborn, the old stories say. Slipping quietly from his cradle on his very first day to wander off and borrow, without quite asking, a small herd of cattle belonging to his older brother Apollo. To cover his tracks, the clever infant fashioned soft sandals from bark. The myth tells us, walking the cattle backward so their prints would confuse anyone following, and hid them away in a quiet cave before slipping innocently back into his own cradle before morning. Apollo, discovering the trick, was more amused than angry in the end, especially once Hermes offered him a gift in apology. A small instrument he'd invented that very night from a hollow tortoise shell, and a few careful strings, the very first lyre. Picture that quiet cave now, if it helps you settle. A small herd resting undisturbed in the dark, cattle breathing slowly and evenly, entirely unbothered by the clever mischief that brought them there. And nearby, a soft, new sound, gentle strings, plucked for the very first time. Let your own thoughts rest as easily as those borrowed cattle now, undisturbed, unbothered, resting quietly wherever they've settled tonight. Nothing to account for, nothing to untangle. Only soft, gentle rest, however it arrived. Chapter 36. The Quiet Birth of Aphrodite. Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty, was said to have come into being not through any ordinary birth, but from the sea itself, rising gently from soft white foam where it gathered along a quiet, sunlit shoreline. The old poets describe her arriving already fully grown, carried gently across the calm water on a great scallop shell. The sea itself impossibly still and welcoming around her, as though the whole ocean had settled specially calm just for her arrival. Gentle winds guided her softly toward the shore, the story tells us, and flowers are said to have bloomed quietly in the sand wherever her feet first touched land. The whole scene unhurried, soft, and gently golden in the early light. Picture that shoreline now, if it helps you rest. Calm turquoise water, barely moving. Soft white foam drifting gently against pale sand. A golden, early light settling over everything, patient and unhurried. Exactly the kind of morning that asks nothing of you at all. Let that same calm shoreline settle around you now. Soft foam, gentle light, water so still it barely seems to move. Nothing arriving in a rush tonight, only a slow, gentle unfolding. The way beauty itself is said to have first arrived, calm and unhurried, from a quiet, welcoming sea. Chapter 37, Hestia and the Quiet Hearth. Hestia, eldest of the Olympian gods, was goddess of the hearth. The quiet fire kept burning at the center of every home. Unlike her siblings, she rarely appeared in the louder, more dramatic stories, choosing instead a calm, steady presence, tending her fire without any need for attention. Every home and every city, the old customs say, kept a small hearth fire burning in her honor, never quite allowed to go out. A small, steady warmth passed carefully from one generation to the next, unbroken, patient, always tended. Picture that fire now, if it helps you rest. Small, steady flames, glowing warm and low in some quiet hearth. Never demanding, never flaring too high, simply present, night after night. Exactly the same gentle warmth it offered the night before. Hestia asked for no grand temples. The myth tells us, content simply to sit quietly at the center of every home, offering warmth and steadiness to whoever gathered nearby. Unhurried, unbothered by the busier gods around her. Let that same quiet, steady warmth settle over you now. Nothing flickering or uncertain, only a low, gentle glow, patient and constant. The way a well-tended hearth fire settles into the last hour before everyone finally drifts off to sleep. Chapter 38, The Rivers of the Quiet Underworld. Beyond Charon's Ferry, the old stories say, the underworld itself was threaded through with 5 quiet rivers, each with its own gentle character. The Styx, dark and solemn, by which even the gods swore their most serious oaths. The Acheron, river of quiet sorrow, moving slowly beneath low, gray mist. The Phlegethon, said to run with soft, warm fire rather than water, though even its flames were calm and steady rather than fierce. And the Lethe, perhaps gentlest of all, a river of soft forgetting where spirits might drink, the old myths tell us, and let go quietly of old burdens, old worries, old weights they no longer needed to carry. Picture that river now, if it helps you rest. Calm, pale water, moving without hurry, carrying away whatever no longer needs remembering tonight. Every worry, every small tension from the day, drifting gently downstream, dissolving softly into the current. Let yourself drink from that same quiet river now, in your own mind, just for a moment. Feel each small weight ease away. Gently, unhurried, the way old cares dissolve into Lethe's calm, forgetting water. Nothing left to carry now, only rest, light and unburdened. Chapter 39, Persephone's Quiet Garden Below. We spoke earlier tonight of Persephone's journey between the world above and the quiet realm below. But let's rest a while longer on her life underground, which the old stories describe as far gentler than one might first imagine. In time, Persephone came to tend her own quiet garden in the underworld. The myths say pale flowers that bloomed without need of sunlight, soft groves of trees that required no warmth at all. Simply the patient, steady dark to grow slowly in. She grew over the years into a calm and thoughtful queen, gentle with the spirits who passed through her realm, offering quiet comfort rather than fear. Understanding, perhaps better than anyone, both the brightness of the world above and the deep rest of the world below. Picture her garden now, if it helps you settle. Soft, pale blossoms glowing faintly in the dark, quiet paths winding between still, patient trees. No rush anywhere in that calm, shadowed place. Let your own thoughts rest in that same quiet garden now. Nothing bright or urgent required of you, only soft, patient stillness, growing gently in the dark, the way Persephone's own garden grows steadily, season after season, needing nothing but time and quiet to flourish. Chapter 40, the oracle's slow, steady voice. High on the slopes of Mount Parnassus stood Delphi, the old stories tell us, home to Apollo's greatest temple, and to an oracle whose calm, steady voice was sought by kings and travelers alike, from every corner of the ancient world. Pilgrims would climb the mountain slowly. The myths say, often over many days, purifying themselves in a cool, quiet spring before finally entering the temple to ask their question, patient and unhurried despite how far they had traveled. The oracle's answers came slowly, often wrapped in gentle riddles, requiring careful, unhurried thought to fully understand. Nothing about the process was rushed, from the long climb, to the quiet purification, to the slow, careful answer finally given. Picture that mountain temple now, if it helps you rest. Cool stone steps climbing patiently upward, incense drifting in slow curls through quiet columned halls, a calm, steady voice somewhere within, offering its unhurried wisdom to whoever climbed high enough to ask. Let your own thoughts climb that same slow mountain path now. Unhurried, patient, step after quiet step. And at the top, no riddle waiting, only rest, calm and certain. Exactly the answer you came all this way to find. Chapter 41, Ganymede and the Quiet Sky. Ganymede, the old stories tell us, was a young shepherd of remarkable beauty, tending his flock one ordinary afternoon on a quiet hillside, when Zeus, taking the form of a great eagle, gently carried him up to Olympus to serve among the gods. The old poets describe that flight softly, without violence or fear. A wide, gentle wingspan, carrying him smoothly upward through calm, open air, hillsides and rivers shrinking slowly below, until only soft cloud remained beneath him. On Olympus, Ganymede was given a quiet, honored task, pouring nectar for the gods at their long, unhurried gatherings, a calm and steady presence among much louder company. Picture that gentle flight now, if it helps you rest. Wide, soft wings, carrying you smoothly upward, the whole wide world easing gradually away beneath you, replaced slowly by calm, open sky and soft, drifting cloud. Let yourself rise that same gentle way now. Nothing beneath you demanding attention any longer. Only soft, quiet altitude, calm air, and a slow, steady drift upward into rest. Chapter 42. Artemis and the Quiet Night Hunt. Artemis, goddess of the moon and the wild hunt, preferred the quiet hours of dusk and night for her wandering, moving calmly through silver forests with her small band of nymphs, and a pack of gentle, loyal hounds beside her. Unlike the noisier hunts of mortal kings, Artemis moved with patient, careful quiet, the old stories say, respecting every creature of the forest, taking only what was needed, resting often beside quiet streams beneath the moon she herself was said to guide across the sky. Picture that forest now, if it helps you rest. Tall, silver-lit trees, moonlight falling softly between their branches, the quiet pad of gentle paws on cool moss. No rush anywhere in that calm, silver-lit wandering. Artemis, the myths tell us, would often simply rest beside some quiet forest pool as the night deepened, her hounds settling calmly around her. Content simply to watch the moon's slow climb without needing anything further from the evening at all. Let yourself settle into that same silver forest now. Moonlight drifting softly overhead, gentle company resting quietly nearby. Nothing left to hunt or chase tonight. Only calm, unhurried stillness, deepening gently as the night moves on. Chapter 43. Dionysus and the Patient Vineyard. Dionysus, god of wine, is often remembered for wild festivals and loud celebration. But tonight, let's rest instead on the quieter work behind it all. The long, patient tending of the vineyard itself. Vines took years of careful attention, the old farmers knew. Roots settling slowly into warm soil, patient hands pruning them season after season, long before any grape was ready to be gathered at all. Picture that vineyard now, if it helps you rest. long, even rows of quiet vines, leaves rustling gently in a warm evening breeze, grapes ripening slowly, unhurried, under the same patient sun and moon that tend every other growing thing. The harvest itself, when it finally came, was slow and careful too. The old customs say, grapes gathered gently by hand, pressed patiently, and left to rest quietly in cool cellars for a long, unhurried while before they became what they were always meant to be. Let your own thoughts rest in that same cool, quiet cellar now. Nothing to rush, nothing to finish tonight. Only slow, patient time, doing what it always does, gently in the dark, until everything is exactly ready. Chapter 44. Cerberus resting at the gate. At the entrance to the underworld lay Cerberus, a great three-headed hound, fierce in most old tellings. But tonight, let's picture him a little differently. Simply a large, watchful guardian, resting quietly at his post, as he always has. The old story of Orpheus, and later of Heracles, tells us that Cerberus could be calmed, even briefly, by gentle music or a simple offering, his three heads settling one by one into quiet, drowsy rest. Picture him now, if it helps you settle. A great, heavy hound lying calmly across a wide stone threshold, breathing slow and even, three heads resting together in unhurried, peaceful sleep. Nothing passes his gate without his quiet notice, the myths say, but nothing troubles his rest either most nights. Only a long, patient watch, kept gently, night after night, undisturbed. Let your own rest settle as calmly as is now. Watchful if it needs to be, but calm and heavy and unhurried. 3 slow breaths, in and out, settling deeper each time toward untroubled sleep. Chapter 45. Hera's Peacock and its 100 Eyes. Argus was a giant with 100 watchful eyes scattered across his body. The old stories tell us. And Hera, queen of the gods, once set him to guard something precious, trusting that with so many eyes, he need never fully close them all at once. Even Argus, though, could be lulled eventually. The myth says, by Hermes' slow, patient storytelling, one soft tale after another, until one by one, his 100 eyes grew heavy and closed, and finally all of them rested at once. Afterward, Hera, grieving her faithful guardian, gathered his many eyes gently and placed them. The old story tells us, across the tail feathers of her sacred bird, the peacock, so that his watchful patience might be remembered always, softly, in shimmering color. Picture that peacock now, if it helps you rest. A wide, calm fan of feathers, countless soft eyes resting quietly within each one, no longer watching for danger, simply resting, beautiful and still, exactly as Argus himself finally learned to rest. Let Let your own eyes grow just as heavy now, one by one, the way his 100 eyes once did, each one closing a little more, gently, unhurried, until every last bit of watchfulness finally, softly, lets go. Chapter 46. Aeolus and the Bag of Quiet Winds. Aeolus, keeper of the winds, lived on a floating island, the old stories say, where he kept every wind of the world gathered carefully inside a great leather bag, releasing only a gentle breeze here and there, as travelers required. When Odysseus passed his island during his own long journey home, Aeolus gifted him that very bag, every troublesome wind bound, safely inside, leaving only a single favorable breeze to carry his ship gently homeward. Picture that bag now, if it helps you rest. Every restless gust, every stormy worry, bundled up carefully and tied away, leaving only calm, steady air behind. One gentle, favorable breeze, guiding you softly toward exactly where you need to be. Whatever restless winds the day may have stirred up, let them rest now too, gathered gently away, tied safely shut, leaving only calm, steady air around you, soft and unhurried, carrying you the rest of the way towards sleep. Chapter 47. Iris and the Quiet Rainbow Bridge. Iris, goddess of the rainbow, served as a gentle messenger between the gods on Olympus and the mortal world below, traveling swiftly but softly along her own bridge of soft, arching color, connecting sky and earth after a quiet rain. Unlike Hermes, who moved among mortals on quick, clever errands, Iris carried her messages calmly, unhurried, appearing only briefly. A soft arc of color settling gently over some rain-quiet valley before fading away just as gently as it came. Picture that rainbow now, if it helps you rest. Soft bands of color arching gently over a calm, rain-washed hillside, the air still smelling faintly of rain, everything freshly quiet and still. The old poets say she moved without any noise at all, her passage marked only by that same soft, fading arc of color, here and gone, gentle and unhurried, exactly the way a good rest arrives and settles quietly, without announcement. Let your own thoughts settle beneath that same soft arc now. Color fading gently into calm evening light, rain-washed air settling still and quiet around you. Nothing announced, nothing demanded. Only a soft, gentle bridge, carrying you quietly towards sleep. Chapter 48. Tantalus and the Patient Release. Tantalus, in the old, harder versions of his story, was punished endlessly. Standing in water he could never drink, beneath fruit he could never quite reach. But tonight, let's rest on a gentler reading of that same old tale. Picture instead a quiet pool, cool and inviting, and branches heavy, with soft fruit hanging just overhead. not a punishment tonight, but simply a place of patient waiting, where nothing needs to be grasped or hurried, where simply resting nearby is enough. There's a quieter wisdom in patience itself. The old philosophers later suggested, in learning to rest beside a thing without needing to immediately possess it. Water that will still be there tomorrow. Fruit that will ripen fully in its own good time. Picture yourself now, resting beside that same cool water, that same heavy branch, needing nothing from either of them right this moment. Simply present, unhurried, at ease beside whatever the day still held. Let that same patient ease settle over you now. Nothing to reach for tonight, nothing urgent waiting just out of reach. Only calm, quiet rest, exactly enough, exactly on time, exactly as it should be. Chapter 49. Orion and his slow walk across winter. Orion, the old stories tell us, was a great and gentle hunter, tall and broad-shouldered, who wandered the earth with his faithful hounds beside him, before finally being placed, after his story ended, among the stars themselves. Some versions tell of his friendship with Artemis, the two of them hunting calmly together through quiet forests, comfortable in each other's unhurried company, never needing to rush toward anything at all. When his time on Earth was done, the myths say, he was lifted gently into the night sky, where he still walks slowly across the winter months, his belt of 3 bright stars visible on any clear, cold evening. Picture him now, if it helps you rest. A tall, patient figure, striding slowly across the dark winter sky, his faithful hounds trailing quietly behind him. The same unhurried walk he's taken every winter for longer than anyone can measure. Let your own thoughts walk that same slow path now. Patient, steady, unhurried, striding gently across the dark, the way Orion still strides across every clear winter night, calm and certain, needing nothing from the world below at all. Chapter 50. The Golden Fruit of the Hesperides. Far to the west, beyond even the mountain's atlas held upon his shoulders, the old stories tell of a quiet garden tended by the Hesperides, nymphs of the evening light, where a single tree grew heavy with golden apples. A great, coiled dragon rested beneath its branches, unhurried and watchful, guarding the tree not out of anger, but simply out of long, patient duty, exactly as it had for longer than anyone could remember. Heracles, on one of his own long labors, journeyed all that way west, the old story says, walking further than most travelers ever dared, simply to ask, gently, for a small portion of that golden fruit. Picture that garden now, if it helps you rest. Soft evening light settling permanently over quiet grass, golden fruit glowing warm among green leaves. A great, calm guardian resting beneath, patient, and unhurried, exactly as evening itself is patient and unhurried. Let that same soft, golden evening light settle over you now. Warm, quiet, permanent, the way it rests eternally over that same far western garden. Nothing left to guard tonight, nothing left to reach for. Only soft light and rest, and the same slow, patient evening it always was. Chapter 51. The Quiet Return of Persephone's Springtime. We've drifted tonight through many old, patient tales. Gods and quiet gardens, sleeping shepherds, and long, slow voyages home. Let's pause once more, gently before the very last chapter, on a single, simple image. Picture a wide, calm meadow, the old stories tell us. The very same one where Persephone once wandered, gathering flowers, unhurried, all those long ages ago. And picture her walking there again now, exactly as she does every single spring. The grass rises slowly to meet her steps. The myth suggests flowers opening gently in whatever direction she happens to wander, the whole meadow softening awake around her. Unhurried, the way your own body might slowly soften now, sinking further into rest. Nothing about her return is rushed. One slow season follows another, patiently, the way it always has, and always will, needing nothing from anyone to keep turning gently onward. Let yourself rest in that same unhurried meadow now. Soft grass, gentle light, flowers opening slowly around you. Nothing needed from you at all except to simply lie there, calm and unhurried, exactly like the season itself. Chapter 52. The Old Stories Still Turning. We've moved tonight through only a small handful of these old tales. There are many, many more, tucked quietly into the corners of that same ancient world. But perhaps that's enough for one night's rest. What all of them share, in their own way, is this: a sense that the world was once alive with meaning, that every river had its spirit, every mountain its story, every star its old, half-remembered name. And in a quiet way, that same feeling continues even now. Every time a story is told softly, at the end of a long day, to help someone else drift toward sleep. Every calm voice, retelling some old tale one more time, just so someone tired can rest a little easier. So let yourself rest now, fully, here in your own quiet room. Let these old stories settle gently in the back of your mind, unhurried, the way stars settle quietly into the night sky, one by one, as the last daylight fades away. Somewhere in memory, a lyre still plays its slow, aching song. A mother and daughter are still, even now, walking together through some distant, greening field. A ship still glides, steadily toward its own quiet harbor. And there is nothing left for you to do now. Nowhere else you need to be. Just rest. Just breathe. Just let it all go.